So I was given the task of talking about Mary Magdalene, and it got me thinking about what, before I opened up the scriptures to find all the verses about her, I just sat there and thought about what I have heard the world say about Mary Magdalene. I'm going to open it up to you all. What are a few things the world has come up with about this woman of the Bible? Just shout it out if you have it. Any other ones? What's that?
Someone Jesus loved.
Someone Jesus loved, yes. Yes, maybe his woman, yes. That's where I was getting to, yes. And so Hollywood has loved this woman named Mary Magdalene. Some say Mary Magdalene. I might interchange them because it's just kind of confusing. But women around the world love her and have loved to come up with ideas about her. Hollywood has, there was a movie made about her not that long ago. I had forgotten about it, never saw it. So I went and watched just a little trailer of it, and definitely was portraying more a possible love interest to Jesus. Not Hollywood, but Broadway. There's a Broadway musical called Jesus Christ Superstar that has portrayed, Mary was the only, from what I was reading, the only woman that had a role in that play. And from their words, this is what they portrayed her as. She was portrayed as a prostitute and immoral woman, and this is what their description of her was. She was a friend, a mother figure, and possible lover towards Jesus. That is what they portrayed her as. Movies, blogs, books, there's so much that the world has loved to come up about with Mary Magdalene. And so, we, though, want to just take what the scripture said. And what's really cool is it's a beautiful, 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 beautiful story, and life-changing whenever you take her story as a whole together from all that we know, the little bit we know about her, and read it. And it's really, really, really cool. And real quickly, I was going to tell you this. We were sitting out there, was able to bring our son with us. And he says, "What time are you speaking, Mom?" And I said, 3:30. He goes, "Oh." He goes, "Everyone's going to be sleeping." I said, "That's so rude." So let's prove him wrong. I know, but I want to be able to tell him I saw all eyes open, so I could just prove him wrong. But anyway, so what I did is, after remembering all that I've been told of her, because yes, I had heard, not even heard, I don't know, you just hear this stuff. I had thought of Mary Magdalene as this prostitute and immoral woman, all this stuff. But whenever you sit down and just, so what I did is I opened it up and just took all the scriptures and all the gospels of everything we know about her. And it's really just a few verses that tell us stuff about her. And on all the gospels, it's a lot of the same things we know about her. But whenever you put it together, our whole weekend is about this living faith. Living, active, not dead, alive, exciting faith. And so, whenever I read this and started reading all the verses that the only little bits we know about her, it's really convicting. And it made me think about my life and how much of a living faith I have. And so, what we're going to do is we're going to study this amazing woman. And since we're talking about living faith this weekend, what I did is I broke down everything we know about her. Everything we're about to talk about is the only stuff we know about her, okay? But I broke it down as describing her faith, as a development of her faith. And we then, I want us to focus on how we then can make this our development of faith as well. And so, there we go. The first thing we know about Mary, the very beginning of her story, the only thing we know of as the beginning of her story in the Bible, is the starting of her faith. And in Mark 16:9, someone had talked about this earlier, Mark 16:9, it says, Mary Magdalene, from whom he, Jesus, had cast out 7 demons. Luke 8:2 says, and also some women who had been healed of evil spirits and infirmities, Mary called Magdalene, from whom 7 demons had gone out. So this lady, the very first thing we know of her in scriptures is that she had 7 demons, and Jesus came to her and relieved her of those 7 demons. Now, We can talk a lot about how that happened. I know that, if you study how demon possession came about, some people it seemed like kind of welcomed them in. Sometimes they just found people to go in. We don't know how she was possessed by these 7 demons. But we do know that it would have been torturous for her. We do know it would have been a very dark, scary, evil place. We read about some of the stuff demons would do to people, or make them do, or to hurt other people, hurt themselves, say things that they were unaware of. Whatever it is, however she came about this, whether she was an immoral woman or not, however this happened, she had 7 demons. She was in a dark place, and Jesus came and took them from her. Jesus relieved her of 7 demons. And I can only imagine her reaction and thankfulness. And this is where, if we're talking about development of faith, this was where the starting of her faith began. By realizing who had relieved her from these demons and then followed him, which we'll talk about in a minute. So it got me thinking about the starting of my faith. We all start somewhere. Everyone starts somewhere. And I want us to never forget that feeling. I want us to always have that gratitude, that thankfulness, that humbleness, because we've all been in a torturous state before. We've all been in a dark state before. And Jesus has met us, and our faith has developed, and he has saved us. And it also got me thinking, because, we talk a lot about, a lot was assumed about this woman. A lot is still being said. We can make assumptions about other people. We can see people in their dark and torturous and demon stages of life, and maybe we can judge them, but everyone can be saved. Just like Lori talked about last time, no one is too far. We can't ever think there are too many demons that someone has, and we can never think that even ourselves are too far. Maybe sometimes we get into a dark state. We need to remember that no one is too far from Jesus' reach, and our faith has to start somewhere. If you think about, remember what demon possession did, people saw what she was doing. I don't know what she was doing. We're not told. But it was obvious that she had 7 demons. Probably no one looked at her and thought, she's going to do amazing things today. And so we need to remember that whenever we see other people. Faith has to start somewhere. No one is too far gone. We all have our own demons, and we can all start where we are because Jesus came and found her and helped her. Some of the best followers of Jesus I know are people who probably people would look at and go, they're too far. They're in a very dark, evil place. But Jesus came and Jesus healed them, and now they do not take Jesus for granted. And so we need to remember that our faith starts somewhere, just like hers did. Hers started by seeing Jesus take away her 7 demons. But her faith, we're talking about development of faith here, her faith didn't end here. She could have easily just been like, oh wow, great, and gone on with her life. But what did she do next? We see next that she built her faith. We see the building of her faith. And if you read what we're about to read about what she would have done for this or witnessed, I cannot imagine how faith building it would have been. Mark 15, 40 through 41 says, Mary Magdalene and Mary, the mother of James the younger, and Joseph and Salome, when he was in Galilee, they followed him, ministered to him, and there were also many other women who came with him to Jerusalem. Can you imagine what she would have seen during this? And I think it's so cool that she was healed from these 7 demons, and then those people who would have seen her demon possessed then see her following Jesus and ministering to him. She actually, ministering to him, she probably brought him water. Maybe she helped wash his feet. I don't know what she did. But imagine doing that physically for Jesus would be incredible. And what she would have witnessed and even helped with. She was already healed, but she would have seen other healings, other miracles. She would have been there to physically see Jesus love on people, Jesus comfort people, Jesus forgive people, Jesus showing compassion. It would have been life-changing and faith-building. And we talking about ourselves here, right? Because then we want to say, okay, how are we building our faith? How can we have a living faith? Our faith has started somewhere. Now we've got to build it up. So how am I building my faith? Because we're going to see soon, Mary needed a strong, strong faith to get through what she's going to get through. We need a strong, strong faith to get where we need to go and to get through some stuff that life's going to throw at us. So how are we building it like she did? Obviously, probably the first thing you think of is Bible reading. Absolutely. That's what we need to be doing every day, is filling our hearts with Bible, of course. Prayer, relationship with God, of course. Prayer, we can't get through this life or build a proper relationship without that, of course. Worship, fellowship with one another. That is us giving our praise and glory to God. That is faith building. All of this is faith building. All of this is needed. But there's also something else that I think sometimes we can forget. I know I have forgotten in the past too. And that is something that we see from her life here. And that is actually following and ministering to Jesus day in and day out. I feel like sometimes we can use things like maybe Bible, prayer, worship, and I'm not saying anyone here does, but I've noticed it myself sometimes, can be like a checklist. And go, okay, did that for the day, did this for the day. Whenever we every day decide to follow him in everything we do, whenever we every day decide to minister to him in everything we do, it's not just a checklist. It is actually giving our full heart and life over to him, and it will be faithful. It will build that faith that is not just a checklist faith. It will be a true faith that we need. It is a life and commitment of living to Jesus, not just a checklist. It is actually who we are, and that is who Mary is. She decided to follow him, be with him, see those multitudes come around him. Excuse me, those allergies are getting me. All that stuff. And so we need to be like that. And so how, though, can we do this today? We can't physically follow him around and bring him water and see what he needs and see how we can help him physically. So how can we do that today? You know the verse where it talks about whenever you feed the poor, whenever you take care of the hungry, whenever you do this, whatever you do to them, Jesus says, you're doing unto me. That's ministering to Jesus still. That's living for him. We need to be helping the needy. We need to be helping the fatherless. We need to be helping the widows. We need to be helping the hungry, children, poor, sick. Again, it is a life. We may not want to do this. That's the part where this building of our faith comes in. We can easily do things to check off and go, okay, my faith's building. Whenever you give your heart and everything over to doing hard service for other people in Jesus' name, it's going to be tough. And it's going to put us in situations that maybe we don't want to be in. But we need to do it because it is our life. We need to deny self, pick up cross, and follow me, just like Jesus said. And you know, us mamas, get your kids involved. If they're not seeing you do this now, what makes you think they're going to do it someday? Get them involved. Get them there. Let them see you cry over people and help people and hug people and doing it all for Jesus' sake. Because whenever we do that, it's to him, not for glory for us, but to him. And then they, in turn, our kiddos someday will do that, we pray. We can only grow in our faith if we truly have a life-changing heart of following Jesus and ministering to Jesus every single day. And our faith is not going to grow if we don't do this. And Mary needed a strong, strong faith for what was to come next. We need a strong, strong faith to get through life. And so, development of her faith. We see she started her faith. She then built her faith by following and ministering to him. And then there was a testing of her faith. And this is the part that can get really sad. And I can't even imagine whenever you put it into perspective of what this would have felt for her. John 19:25 says, "But standing by the cross of Jesus were his mother's sister, Mary the wife of Clopas, and Mary Magdalene." Standing by the cross of Jesus. That's the next thing we know that happened in her life. After ministering and following him, she stood by the cross of Jesus. And if you can just sit back and imagine for a minute what that would have looked like, what she would have witnessed, It said there she stood by the cross. One other place it says off in the, off to the distance a little bit. We don't know, but it was near the cross. She would have seen it because also, Jesus talks to Mary, his mother, and they could hear. They were there. They could see what was going on. They could see the beatings. They could see the scourgings. They could see the nails. They could see the blood. They could hear the sounds. They could hear the wailing. They could smell the smells. They could feel the emotion, the anger, the terror, the sadness, the weeping. She would have been right there. Before Mary's eyes was her entire proof of faith on a cross. He's being tortured, beaten, and then in the end, we know what happens is he dies. Her faith had to have been shook. I know if I was standing there witnessing this man I had been following, this man I had put everything in, every fiber of my being, he had saved me, seeing him, my faith would be shook. And it got me thinking, our faith is going to be tested as well. What are we going to do about it? And in a minute, we're going to see what she did about this testing of her faith. Growing up, you'd always hear those preachers or women teachers or whatever say, if you haven't struggled yet or been tested yet or tempted yet, you're gonna. And it was always so discouraging. So I'm not trying to make this a discouraging thing, but it's true. If you haven't gone through something hard yet, you're going to. I was always warned that. The older I get, the older my kiddos get. Just seeing stuff that's going on, it happens. You're gonna be tested. Your faith is gonna be shook in some way or another. And it's going to happen in a number of ways. I'm sure if I went around the room and passed around a microphone, we'd have similar stories, yet very different stories. Of heart-wrenching, sad, scary, whatever it is, things happening that test your faith. Disease is going on right now like it always has been. Loved ones are dying like they always have been. Loved ones are hurting like they always have been. We have catastrophic events. 2020 just happened, right? We have pain, we have injustice of different types of people going on, and you're going to see more of this the more you put yourself out there and minister to other people for Jesus. So whenever we follow him, whenever we're building our faith and ministering to him, sadly, this comes with that, is you're gonna see it constantly. That is the world we live in. Unfortunately, for a time, like I had said earlier, I caught myself doing this. I kind of felt like maybe I put myself in a bubble. I was in a happy little bubble. I was teaching Bible classes. I was doing this. And I was like, but what am I doing to minister to our community? Like Jesus said, the hungry, the poor, the father, the widows. What am I doing? And so whenever you throw yourself out there to help and minister to Jesus, for Jesus, you're going to throw yourself into situations that can be testing of your faith. You see things that happen to people that are just horrible. But also, I can tell you, my faith has never been stronger than whenever I see that, because you see Jesus working and you are prepared more for it. I'm sure we all have similar stories about people we love. Whenever I was thinking about, okay, so what are some of the times that I have had to witness things that have been hard for me to witness? One of my close friends collapsed into my house one day, threw herself on me, and she just soaked my shirt. She had found her husband cheating. Years, I think they were married 15 years at this point. That'll shake your faith. That shook her faith. It said before that I'm really passionate about our fatherless kids in our community. Whenever you get into stuff like foster care or adoption, or even maybe we have nurses in here that work in NICU, you see babies withdrawing from drugs. Something you never want to see. And it can be a little faith shaking. Maybe you, like I, have had a friend who you had to comfort because they lost a loved one to suicide. You comfort people whose families passing away, people lose homes, people lose jobs, whatever it is, we witness things, or things happen to ourselves that can shake us at times. But what are we going to do with this? We are going to be in the thick of some horribly painful and emotionally tasking times. Where's our faith going to go? Our faith will crumble if we're not strong and we haven't built it up. If we just stopped right where she was whenever the demons were taken out and not worked on building it up, whenever this stuff happens, we're going to crumble. So have we built it up to this point like she had? We know we've seen this probably happen to loved ones who haven't worked on building their faith. Something horrible happens and they turn from God. They find their faith in other things. So what are we going to do whenever this happens? And we're going to see what Mary did whenever her faith was tested by standing at the cross, witnessing this man who she loved in pain and dying. So what's going to happen? So development of faith. Her faith, right, started. She then built it up by following and ministering to Jesus. Then, because of that, not because of that, but then part of that was the testing of the faith, which were all going to happen. So what happened next with what we know about Mary? There was the proving of her faith. Her faith was proven. John 20, this is the book that we've been in this weekend. John 20, 1 through 2 says, "Now on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb early while it was still dark and saw that the stone had been taken away from the tomb. So she ran and went to Simon Peter and the other disciple, the one whom Jesus loved, and said to them, 'They have taken the Lord out of the tomb, and we do not know where they have laid him.'" And you can hear almost like the anguish in her. Where have they taken him? But what I want you to notice is it said here, Mary Magdalene came to the tomb early. So guess what she did after her faith was tested? She still decided to pursue Jesus even after all she had witnessed. He was dead. He was dead. Yet she still pursued Jesus. She went to where he was. Even after all she had felt, all that she had lost, all that she had seen, her faith continued because she went to Jesus. Her faith was tested. She proved that faith, though, and continued on. And guess what? Talking about ourselves here, because I want us to take this home with us. This is something I'm trying to remember too. We're going to have to do this too. She never gave up on her faith. She went to the tomb to be with Jesus still. And she didn't know he had risen yet. It says here, I don't know where they've taken him, but she still went there. She didn't know he was going to rise. She didn't know this. Yet she still believed in who she was, and she knew her faith was strong enough, even though she didn't know the outcome, to know that she still needed to be where he was. She never gave up. And so, what about us? Do I still go to Jesus after my faith has been tested, and in those unsure moments, even when I don't know what the outcome's going to be? Or maybe my prayers haven't been answered in the way I thought it was going to be. Because going to him during these moments of testing is really a testament to where our faith is. Who do we run to? Because guess what? That testing is going to happen. We have a choice then, where do we go? And it's going to be hard. And if we haven't built it up, it's going to be very, very easy to find something in this world to fill that void that makes us feel good at the moment. But we need to prove to Jesus that we have enough faith to get to him and stay with him. Even if, like her, we don't know what's going to happen. Do we go to him for comfort? Do we search his scriptures? Do we rely on him even in the unknown? What about our prayer life? Does our prayer life suffer during these testing moments right after? Does my Bible study? And I can attest to you that yes, sometimes in my life it has. But the moments that I have come out stronger is whenever I have remembered to go straight back to Jesus, even during the testing, and go to him. The moments that my faith has been tested are the times I need to keep seeking him the most, even when we don't know the outcome. We all know the verse, and I believe it was Christy earlier who used this verse, Philippians 4:7, one of my favorites. He will give us that peace that passes all understanding. In those moments, those horrible things that we listed before, the horrible things that you can remember that shook your faith, if we go to him, those times that you lay on the ground and pray, I don't know how to do this, but I'm here, I know you're there, please be with me, he's going to give us that peace that we don't understand. But if we pursue him and prove it, he is going to give that to us. Okay. So we know about Mary that her faith started. We know she built it by following him and living for him. We know that it was tested by seeing Jesus on the cross and seeing him die. But then she didn't stop there. She could have run after any of those things, but she didn't. She proved her faith by going to the tomb, even though she didn't know what happened. And then we get to the last thing we know about her. There we go. The validation of her faith happened. And this is the really exciting part. It's a little lengthier of a passage, so I'm going to read it still in John 20, starting in verse 11. So she'd already gone. She found that the tomb was empty. She ran crying to the apostles. They come back searching, and here is where we catch up here. John 20, starting in verse 11. Now Mary stood outside the tomb crying. As she wept, she bent over to look into the tomb and saw 2 angels in white seated where Jesus' body had been, one at the head and the other at the foot. They asked her, "Woman, why are you crying?" "They have taken my Lord away," she said, "and I don't know where they have put him." At this, she turned around and saw Jesus standing there, but she did not realize that it was Jesus yet. He asked her, "Woman, why are you crying? Who is it you are looking for?" Thinking he was the gardener, she said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have put him, and I will get him." Jesus said to her, "Mary." She turned toward him and cried out in Aramaic, "Rabboni," which means teacher. Jesus said, "Do not hold on to me, for I have not yet ascended to the Father. Go instead to my brothers and tell them, I am ascending to my Father, and your Father to my God, and your God." Mary Magdalene went to the disciples with the news, "I have seen the Lord." And she told them what he had said and the things he said to her. In Mark 16:9, the account there, it says here, "Now when he rose early on the first day of the week," so Jesus rose early, "he appeared first to Mary Magdalene." He appeared to her first, from whom he had cast out 7 demons. Her faith saw its day of validation. And thank God that she had built up her faith for this moment of validation. If she had not had the faith that she did through all of this, if she had not built it up, if she had not continued, if she had not proven her faith, she would not have been at the tomb for Jesus to come to first. We wouldn't have this account to read. She wouldn't have been there. And so thank goodness her faith had its day of validation because of how it had been built up. Again, we're talking about ourselves here, right? We always want to look at scripture and go, okay, what can I do? How can this build me up? How can this make me better? Our day is coming. How are we preparing? Will we be ready? Will we even be there for Jesus to see? Look at her life and what it took from her faith to get to this moment. It didn't just happen. Our day of validation for Jesus to say, welcome, is not just going to happen. It's going to take hard work. It's going to take some heartache. It's going to take some pain. It's going to take self-denial. It's going to take walking with Jesus every single day. That is where we're going to get our day of validation. It is not just going to happen. What will I do for my faith to get to my day, just like Mary had? And we need to ask ourselves that. Okay, so to sum this all up, her faith development is beautiful and life-changing, and we can all do that as well. Our faith starts somewhere. We need to build it up. We're going to be tested at times. We're going to prove our faith, and then in the end, we pray. I pray that each of us sees that day of validation. And what I want to notice too at the end here is it's something that as I was reading through all this stuff. So this is all the stuff we know about Mary. What I think is so cool, and it gave me chills whenever I realized this, is Mary's story, and it's just like all of ours though. Mary's story starts and ends with Jesus coming to her. It started with Jesus coming to her in her distress and darkness and agony and pain, and in something probably a lot of us can't even imagine. It takes out her demons and giving her new life. And then, as we saw, it ends with him coming to her in her darkness and her distress, in her weeping, and bringing joy again and life again. But in between Jesus coming to her in the beginning and the end, we see what she did. The middle part matters. In between our life is what will matter to get us to where we're supposed to go. And we can never, ever, ever take that lightly. That's something I'm getting into my kids right now. That's something I'm reminding myself every day. This life can be hard. This life can be challenging. This life can be testy. All this stuff. But it's going to be okay because we're going to have our day of validation just like Mary did if we get strong and really focus on those days between. And so I pray that each one of us takes this to heart, looks at Mary Magdalene's beautiful story, and really builds our faith like she did. Thank you so much for your time and attention. Everybody's eyes were open the whole time. Thank you.